For the past 2 weeks, we've talked about some very basic ideas about God. I've done that because the way we think God is and the way we think God acts will have a great amount of influence on how we think of ourselves. It'll also have a great deal of influence on how we treat other people. So today I want us to think about something. How do you think God is? How do you picture God? I'm not talking about how God looks, although that might be a part of it. But what kind of person do you think God is? What is God like? Now, of course, all the different versions of Christianity have things that tell us we need to believe about God, but that's not what I'm talking about. Now, I'm not talking about what you've been told you should believe. I'm talking about the privacy of your own mind. What do you really think about God? A while back, some professors from Baylor University did some research to find out how Americans view God. They interviewed a whole bunch of people to get their view of God. Now, with any kind of study like this, you've got to be careful because a lot of times on stuff like this, people will respond with what they think they're supposed to say rather than what they actually believe. So we can't look at this as the final word, but it is interesting. And after they did this study, they found that they could classify the way most Americans view God in one of 4 categories. Now, not everybody's view could be in one of those 4, but the great majority of Americans, their view of God could be in one of 4 categories. The first was sort of like a very standardized way. They think of God as basically being an older, white-haired man sitting on a humongous throne, maybe with a crown. God is so big he dwarfs everything. He's sitting on a huge throne. And God sits up there and he controls and rules everything. And not only that though, God has very high standards for how he expects human behaviors to go. In other words, God has rules that he expects us to follow. Now, within that general category, there are 2 subcategories. In one of those, God, remember, is up there towering on the throne, and he's looking down with his rules. And God is absolutely disgusted because nobody follows him. Now, people who have that view of God believe that they always fall short. They constantly need to beat themselves up. They've always done wrong. They feel that God's sitting up there, he's looking down at them and just absolutely disgusted at how they're living. You see this sometimes when people give blessings at meals. I've noticed this before. One of the things a lot of people will do when they give blessings at meals is ask God to forgive their sin. And if you have that view of God, it's like all the time you're failing. And you got to say, God, forgive me, I failed again. It's just over and over and over. You beat yourself up with it. You never measure up. That's one way people look at God. They never measure up. But there's another variation in this category, and that is of people who really think, well, you know, I know God has these high standards here. I've pretty well met them. I might not have met them 100%, but I've met them pretty close. And since I've met these expectations pretty close, I don't have to feel bad about myself. I feel somewhat comfortable in God's presence. God doesn't have any real reason to be angry with me. God's friendly toward me. I've met his expectations. But I look around, and I see a lot of people who have not met God's expectation. And I realize that God likes me because I've done good. God doesn't like them though. And you know, God uses his control of everything. He's given me nice things. I have a nice house, I have a nice car, I have vacation. My children are smart. They're always winning awards in school. They're healthy. My wife's healthy. We're happy. I've got a wonderful, wonderful wife. And I look over here, these people don't have those lives. I think, well, you know, if they just live as good a life as I do, God will bless them with the same kind of life He's blessed me with. If we have this kind of picture of God, we'll have a very high opinion of ourselves. But we won't have much of an opinion toward what other people. These people don't live up to God's expectations. He's given them a bad life. God doesn't like them. God doesn't want anything to do with them. He set bad things on them. Why should I care about them? If God treats them bad, why do I have to treat them good? I don't feel obligated to those people. They're on God's B list. If God's against them by enemies, I can be against them too. So our view of God is going to affect how we treat other people. Now the second major category for how most Americans view God is to picture God as a tender, loving, grandmotherly type figure. She's always ready to bake us an apple pie, give us a hug, wipe the tears off our eyes and say, "It's all right, honey, Grandma's here." God always acts this way toward us. God always loves us no matter what we do. You know, we get into trouble, God says, "Well, that's all right, honey, I'll fix it, don't worry about it." And God acts this way toward our friends. God's always really friendly to our friends, invites them in for a piece of pie, has them come over and spend the day with us, and takes us out to a picnic and all this, that, and the other. God's always nice to our friends, but God's different toward the people we don't like and towards people who don't like us. You know, Grandpa will get pretty mean when somebody messes with her little darling. So God's a kind, gently grandmother, loves us no matter what. She loves all of our friends, and she loves all the people we like, but she don't like the people we don't like. Now the third major way that Americans might view God is to picture God sitting way, way up somewhere on the throne. God doesn't do anything in the world. He doesn't control anything in the world. He's not active in the world at all. God's not involved in anything down here. He's up there, we're down here. He doesn't have any involvement with us whatsoever. However, He's got a list. And He's making a list of all the things we've done wrong. And when we die, we're going to stand before God, and He's going to pull out His list, and He's going to confront us with all the things we've done wrong. God doesn't do anything now in the world. He's just up there. Just up there. But He's watching and making moves. When we die, we're going to stand before Him up there, and He's going to say, "Okay, now I saw on May the 26th, 2024, at 2:30 in the afternoon, you said so-and-so. Can you explain that to me?" Now, the final major idea of how most Americans view God really doesn't have a picture of God in it. These people are really not sure where God is or what He's doing. He doesn't seem to be interested in us. If there is a God up there, He's just sitting up there by Himself or with whoever He's with. He doesn't do anything down here and doesn't care anything about down here. We can't see that God's ever done anything, and we can't see that God will ever do anything, and we're just not sure God even matters. That's the fourth one. Now, according to these professors at Baylor, most Americans' view of God is in one of those categories. In the first one, God towers up huge above everything, controls everything. He has strict standards of behavior, and He uses His power to give good things to those who please Him and give bad things to those who don't. In the second picture, God is a kind, grandmotherly type figure who loves us and everybody we like and everybody who loves us, but does not love people who don't like us and who we do not like. In the third, God is not involved in our lives at all, but He's going to get us when we die. And in the fourth, God really doesn't do anything. We're not sure that God even matters. Now, I have to admit that my conception of God doesn't fit in any one of those four. But from my experience talking with people, I would agree with these Baylor professors that most Americans' view of God fits in one of those categories. Somebody told me one time years ago their view of God. And they were saying, okay, like, assume I've died and gone to heaven. And I'm sitting up there on a park bench in this beautiful landscape garden type thing. And Jesus comes walking up. And He sits down and we are talking, and Jesus is so friendly and He's so nice. And we have such a good relationship talking to Jesus. And we're just having a great time sitting out there in that beautiful setting. The weather's beautiful, the birds are chirping. And Jesus and I are just talking, having the best time. Here we hear like a wind coming up. And we look over here, God's coming. So I get up right quick and I run off the other way to avoid God. You see, Jesus might be the nice, friendly, loving type person, and I could sit there and talk to Him forever. We'd have a great time together. But God's not, okay? You see, I know that God really wanted to punish everybody and put everybody in hell for all eternity. But the only reason He did was because Jesus asked Him not to. But He really wanted to. And so now here we are all up in heaven, and we're all up here with Jesus. And God, though, still looks at us out of the corner of His eye because really, He'd like to see us in hell. The only reason we're not is because He promised Jesus He would. But He'd still like to. Now, if you've been here the past 2 weeks, you can see how that picture of God right there fits with the misunderstanding many Christians have about what the doctrine of the Trinity said. Of course, that picture of God fits within the first category we talked about, and it's a picture similar to what a lot of people have. And probably in the past, that was the most popular way American mainline Christians viewed God, but not anymore. Things have changed. The way most American Christians view God today is the second way, as the loving grandmother. God is the loving grandmother who smothers us with love and attention and smothers everyone we like with love and attention, but not the people we don't like. And that's becoming the way most American Christians view God. God is kind and loving to people who are like me and to people who think like I do. But God is not kind and loving to people who are not like me and who do not think like I do. That is the message, basically, American Christianity is preaching today. The left is preaching one version of it. The right is preaching another version of it, but it's the same message. The only way they disagree is they disagree as to which people God likes. It's their only disagreement on the right and the left in American Christianity. They only disagree about who God hates. It's true. Now, each one of us has a picture of God in our mind. What do we really think God is like? Where did that picture of God you have come from? Did it come from things you heard as a young person in church? Did it come from things people told you about God? Did it come from preachers? Did it come from personal experiences in your life? Did it come from reading the Bible? If it did it come from reading the entire Bible or just snippets of it? Or if it didn't come from reading the Bible, did it come from what people have told you is in the Bible? Where did your picture of God come from? You see, those are your true beliefs about God. I'll bet those have not remained the same over your lifetime. chances are that your beliefs about God may have changed dramatically over your life. Now, we've talked about in here before how if you look at the Bible, you'll see that the way the Bible portrays people's faith being shaped is through the experiences they have. Their faith is shaped by their own personal experiences of God. And I think that's how it is with us. It is true that as a child, our faith is probably shaped by where our parents took us to church. As we get into our teenage years, that's probably still true if they're still making us go to church when we're a teenager. If not, our religious beliefs may be shaped by whatever is trendy at the moment. And when we get into our 20s and 30s, probably our religious beliefs are still shaped by what is trendy. That's why all these trendy churches have young people in them. Young people follow trends. But then when we get into our 40s, and certainly our 50s, certainly our 60s, we have accumulated life experiences. And those life experiences make us stop and reconsider what we may have believed in the past. You see, we take those things we have experienced in life, our life experiences, and we play them off and compare them with what we've been told about God. We may not do that consciously, but we do it, at least in our unconscious mind. And here's where a lot of people get stuck. If they come to the conclusion from their life experiences that some of the things they have always heard about God are not true, they are scared. Scared. If they let that thought in their mind just for a second, they're getting God's bad side. God will be furious with them for even thinking such a thing. And so we block it out. We try not to let it cross our minds, but of course it's there in the background, even if we never let it come forward. And we put up a facade, even to ourselves. And we just claim we still believe what we should. We just can't bring ourselves to admit, I'm not sure that that's the way I think. And deep down, we try to hide that, even from ourselves. But you know, some people can let those thoughts surface. They think and compare, and they think. And when we allow ourselves to do that, sometimes our beliefs change. And we get to the point where we no longer just passively accept what other people tell us we should believe. We no longer accept what we hear, we think. And that's how we develop a mature faith. Now, there will always be people who unquestioningly believe what other people tell them, what they've always heard, but you will find people who don't. They allow themselves to think. And that's why as people get older, it's not unusual for them to experience a change in how they picture God. And that's nothing to be afraid of. I think that's an example of how God is working in our lives. It is evidence that God is personally involved in our life, that God is leading us in the direction He needs for us to go. It is evidence that God is with us and is guiding us in our life. Sometimes people are afraid to admit, even to themselves, what they really believe about God. As long as they can keep that in the back of the mind, they're fine. But I urge you to let what you really do believe about God come to the front of your mind. Acknowledge it. And don't be afraid. God is going to get you for it. I urge you to take that as a sign that God is working in your life and God is leading you. That God is personally leading you.